Swift's snake symbolism as quickly as I can. Most of you are probably already familiar with the infamous incident where Kanye interrupted Taylor at the VMAs. This was an absolutely humiliating and traumatizing incident for Taylor, who is a literal child at this point, while Kanye was in his 30s. Taylor handled the situation with extraordinary grace and released a song flatly and openly forgiving Kanye for the incident. But Kanye decided that he really liked harassing Taylor and he didn't want to let it go. 7 years later, Kanye releases a song called Famous where he says, "I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex. Why I made that bitch famous." Before he released the song, he called Taylor and ran the lyric, "I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex," ran it past her. He did not run past her, "I made that bitch famous." And what he also didn't run past her is the music video in which Kanye created revenge porn without Taylor's consent, showing her naked body in bed with him. And obviously, as you can imagine, Taylor was upset. I'll do a part 2. So following the release of Famous by Kanye West, Taylor puts out a statement where she says that she would very much like to be excluded from this narrative, one that she never asked to participate in. Because again, I need to underline that from the very beginning, Kanye has instigated and driven this entire conflict. At the time, Kanye West was married to Kim Kardashian, and what Taylor didn't know is that when Kanye called Taylor to tell her that he was writing a song about her, Kim illegally recorded the entire conversation. Now, what's key to understand is that Kanye never played the song for Taylor, even though he told her that he was going to, and Kanye never ran past the lyric, "I made that bitch famous." And he definitely did not ask permission to use her naked body in the video. However, Kim Kardashian took the recorded conversation and edited it to make it seem like Taylor did know about those aspects of the song and released it to the world. What ensued was a veritable feeding frenzy as the misogyny, hatred, and jealousy that millions of people feel towards Taylor Swift exploded and was vented in the form of massive pile-on internet bullying. So after Kim Kardashian instigated the internet feeding frenzy towards Taylor Swift, the insult that millions of people decided on was that Taylor Swift is a snake. What's important to understand is up until this point, the foundation of Taylor's public persona was the squeaky clean, cookie cutter, good girl. Taylor was known for an extremely innocent, kind, loving, open-hearted persona. And the muddled narrative about the Kanye West phone call gave people just a little scrap of ground to claim that all of that kindness and generosity was fake and that Taylor was actually a snake behind the scenes. If you didn't experience this in real time, it's hard to explain the magnitude of internet hatred and the way that everyone seemed to just flip a switch overnight. Taylor was on top of the world before this point and crashed, and her reputation literally seemed to go up in flames almost overnight. Okay, I'm getting comments asking for longer videos. This is going to be a long, nuanced explanation of Taylor's PR circa 2016. In 2016, Taylor Swift was probably as close to being on top of the world as a human being could be. Not only was Taylor's music insanely popular at this time, she also had this infamous squad of Victoria's Secret model best friends, and she was publicly linked to Calvin Harris at the time, making Taylor and Calvin the richest couple in the music industry at the time. Richer than Beyonce and Jay-Z. Kanye West released the song Famous on the same day that Taylor won her second Album of the Year at the Grammys for 1989. Which, a bit of context on that's important to understand is that 1989 came after Red, which was nominated and didn't win Album of the Year, although many people thought it should, but was kind of this general consensus and feeling that Taylor just seemed to be too good to be true because she was putting out banger album after banger album, being a woman in her early 20s. Taylor has always had an innate understanding of PR and has been very aware of her public perception, and at the time she was cognizant of the fact that she was close to being overexposed in the media, to the point that in the conversation with Kanye that Kim illegally recorded, Taylor actually expressed concern that she was already overexposed and she was worried about how being involved in this narrative with Kanye could bring her even more so into the media. Taylor Swift suffers from something that I like to call the Meghan Markle effect, which is that when a woman is too polished, too poised, too composed, she seems to others to be too good to be true, and they start to question her authenticity. This certainly applies to her songwriting. Anyone with a shred of intellect can recognize that Taylor Swift has one of the greatest poetic minds of our time. And yet there will always be people who claim in my comment section and everywhere else that Taylor's songwriting is a trick, that it's not real, that they're secretly male ghostwriters. They just can't wrap their heads around how someone could really create 17 years of back-to-back-to-back-to-back hits. Now, there are valid criticisms of Taylor's public persona during this time. One that I'll point out is that her friend group, from the outside looking in, did not seem to be particularly diverse in terms of skin color or in terms of body type, especially. For these reasons, over the course of Taylor's career, there was this building undercurrent of pressure, of jealousy, frustration, irritation, rage, misogyny that people wanted to release. And when the Kim and Kanye drama went down, the floodgates opened and all of that hatred poured out onto Taylor all at once. What we know as fans is that this mentally sent Taylor off a cliff. And the way that she ended up responding to it was essentially to disappear for years. Completely took herself out of the public eye. When I say she disappeared. Nobody physically saw her. And while Taylor responded with silence, the Kardashians doubled down on this motif of Taylor is a snake, including posts from Kim and Kendall Jenner. What happened next is what I think is one of the most brilliant public relations moves in the history of the music industry. Taylor Swift decided to come back with her next album called Reputation, and she took this motif of a snake and swallowed it and turned it into her art. Taylor rolled out a snake marketing campaign and then re-entered the music public eye with the music video for Look What You Made Me Do. And the entire purpose and gist of that song is to say, you guys have driven me to snap and become the snake, the villain, the bad girl that you think that I am. This was such a thematic departure from anything that Taylor Swift had done up to this point. And for her diehard fans, that initial music video, Look What You Made Me Do, was filled with little Easter eggs alluding to every single aspect of criticism that had been levied against Taylor Swift over the last several years. The imagery of the video shows a grave that reads, "Here lies Taylor Swift's reputation," and it shows Taylor literally crawling out of this grave that the media tried to put her in and climbing back on top. What I think is amazing is that when Taylor announced the tour for Reputation, after people hadn't seen her for years, after they had thoroughly canceled her on Twitter, there were many critics and skeptics in the music industry that said that they thought that the Reputation tour would not sell at all, that she couldn't fill those stadiums. And as we know, Reputation turned out to be the most successful stadium tour in history until she topped it with the Eras tour. Long story short, Taylor Swift is the perfect example of taking your trauma and translating it into art. Outside of explicit PR statements, there have been just a few times that Taylor Swift has publicly addressed the harassment that she's received from Kanye West. Her direct response to the VMAs incident is the song Innocent, in which she says, "It's all right, life is a tough crowd, 32 and still growing up now," talking specifically about Kanye. In the chorus, she says, "It's all right, just wait and see, your string of lights is still bright to me, who you are is not what you did, you're still an innocent." She's forgiving him. It was 7 years later that Kanye picked up the phone to call Taylor about the song Famous. This was in 2016. It wasn't until 2020 that the whole phone call leaked so we could actually know what was said. And the call itself is heartbreaking. The Taylor Swift that we hear on that phone call is dramatically different from the woman that we know today. When Kanye called her up, one of her first questions is it mean? Talking about the song. In the video, you can tell that Taylor is uncomfortable, doesn't want to do it. Kanye has to talk her into the song over the course of the phone call. He never shows her the lyrics. She never okays any of it, and she says that she has to think about it. Taylor did not want to create an enemy in Kanye West, and so for years, she had just taken his absurd harassment and erratic behavior and swallowed it, absorbed it, and just tried to be cool for the sake of keeping the peace. And that's exactly the submissive, innocent, kind behavior that Kanye was hoping to capitalize on with that phone call. Kanye released the song taking credit for Taylor Swift's fame on the same day that she won her second Album of the Year at the Grammys. And in her acceptance speech, Taylor said something to the tune of, "Other people might try to take credit for your fame and for your accomplishments, and you have to ignore that." This happens in February. Kanye releases the music video in which he uses a wax figure of Taylor's naked body without her consent months later that summer. Taylor's public response to this despicable behavior really plays out in the album Reputation, and specifically in the song This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things. In the song, she says that friends don't try to trick you, get you on the phone, and mind twist you, aka exactly what Kim and Kanye decided to do. She also talks about how I'm not the only friends you've lost lately, referencing some of Kanye's famous feuds with other artists like Jay-Z. You can also argue that the song Mad Woman has lyrics that are specifically referencing this incident. She says that women like hunting witches too. You have them do all your dirtiest work for you. She's talking about Kim being the one to record and release this call on behalf of Kanye.
Karma is my boyfriend. Karma is a god.